And we are live.
All right. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So what's up, guys? I have Danny Thompson here. We're going to talk a little bit about having having projects on your portfolio. This is kind of a rebuttal to one of my videos where I broke down some projects that you should have on your resume, things you should show. And we're just going to go through that. I'll give you the backstory, and then Danny will kind of jump in and we'll just take this into an open discussion. And I know that I'm going to get some kickback because in the comment section from my own viewers, I got some pushback on this. So I want to get your responses, and then we'll just go from there. So in my last video, I mentioned that it's okay for beginners to copy projects to display it as long as you're honest. And also depending on who the interviewer is, what they're trying to accomplish, what they're hiring you for, that it's not that bad to have projects on your portfolio that you copy. Now, it's better to elaborate, but that was kind of the sum of it, of that video. And that's what we want to break down. So Danny, if you want to just introduce yourself. I'd say just introduce your channel, what you do, and why you're relevant to this talk, because you do have a background in helping, it seems like thousands of students at this point. And you also have an awesome YouTube channel that I want to make sure people see. So we'll show that and then go from there.
Thank you for having me on this. I'm Danny Thompson. I'm D Thompson Dev. My background is I fried chicken in gas stations for over 10 years, broke into the tech industry, and I've helped several hundred people land their first jobs in tech. So I've kind of figured out what people are looking for, what makes candidates stand out effectively. And the biggest thing is I don't want you just to make a project or have a resume. I want you to stand out to where your work works for you, meaning your LinkedIn profiles, your resumes, they need to keep generating leads for you, whether you're actively working for it or if it's still coming in through your network that you build. So that's kind of what I try to help people do essentially. And it's worked so far. And to kind of talk about the YouTube tutorials and things like that, I don't necessarily think there's anything too terribly wrong with following a tutorial. That is how most people learn. That is where all these tech YouTubers are even doing, right? The Brad Traverses and the Florin Pops of the world, they're teaching you how to make this stuff. I do think, though, and this is one thing that I talk about a lot, tutorial hell and purgatory, the only way you get out of there is by building something, right? So if you're following the same to-do list, if you're following the same, make your, these same projects that we all know that you make, you're not really going to stand out that way. But if you start adding an extra feature, if you add an extra thing, if you add your twist and your flavor, now that's a project you can talk about in an interview. But if you go into an interview saying, hey, I made this to-do app, everyone knows what a to-do app is. They're not going to ask you questions about that. They don't care. They know what it is. If you say like, oh, I made a Twitter clone, everybody knows what Twitter is. You're not doing something that brings some value or conversation to the table. And I feel like that's the one thing that gets you out of tutorial hell. But on top of that, it's the one thing that gets you out of being stuck in your own head, and it adds you to the conversation of an interview.
Yeah, that's perfect. So one thing I did even mention in that talk was if you are copying these tutorials, if you're doing something with it, I think it's really good to, like, if you want to do that bare minimum, because I get it, somebody who just started learning like a month ago and has like 4 projects that they followed online, it'd be really good to elaborate and explain what you learned. Like if you learned about user authentication, if you learned about basic CRUD functionality or how to maybe implement an API into this, do elaborate on those if you can't go beyond that. But expanding upon that, Danny, you're absolutely right. And creating it your own is what's really going to stand out. So right before this, we were just talking right before the stream, and I'm actually probably going to make a video on this, but I hired this one guy. He was a barista at a coffee shop, and he comes up to me, and this only adds to my testimony and also the case where it depends on the interviewer and what you're looking for. But he comes up to me and he sees code on my screen, on my computer, and he asked me, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I kind of explained my company, what I'm doing. I'm explaining this awesome project that I'm working on for this company. And he says, "Hey, man, I really want to get into Python, and I started learning Django, and I have a few projects on my GitHub repo. You mind if I come by next time you're sitting here and show you a few?" And he had projects that were all online. Like he had Corey Schaefer's project on there, a few other tutorials. And because I didn't have that big of a budget, I wasn't looking for somebody extremely advanced. I was able to hire him based on completely copied projects, and he wasn't ready. I mean, he wasn't ready to interview that day. He was simply making coffee and serving people. That was what he was doing that day. So in my case, it fit. It's always going to change up, but because I was looking for somebody that was more beginner ready, I definitely asked him about it, and I gave him some mock interview questions. But yeah, like that's two sides of that, where one does elaborate and make his own projects or hers, and somebody else just has projects and decides to show them. So, Danny, unless you have something more you want to add to that, let's go into the comment section and see what we have. Where I know you're a little bit more natural at this, so you kind of flow with it. I'll kind of let you take it away if you need. This is my first time, so guys, thanks for coming. It looks like we have, I think, over 88 people right now. So my first live stream. Yeah. If you guys don't know, so let me open up the screen. I'm just figuring out Streamlabs here, or StreamYard. This is Danny's channel right here. So D Thompson Dev, and he talks all about the job market and getting hired. He's awesome on Twitter, big followers there, or a big following. He does a lot of good stuff there. So definitely check him out. And I'll try to.
I don't think you're sharing anything.
Am I not? Okay. So let's
try that again. There we go. There we go.
There we go. So this is Danny's YouTube channel. So D Thompson Dev. He just started. What, Danny? What's that, like a month ago, 2 months ago now?
Yeah, to be honest, I had it for I did like a walkthrough through Free Code Camp or something, just something random. But I've only really taken it seriously for about like the last 7 weeks or so. And mainly because one thing that I'm doing is I'm teaching at a coding bootcamp currently. So I wanted to create videos that help my students out. And then I realized, well, I could just share it with everybody. So instead of keeping all the videos private, I started making videos for everyone, whether it's tutorials. I've got several coding tutorials up there. I'm very into, everybody knows this that knows me, I'm very into motivation and helping people get to where they're going. I'm a very, very big believer in, if I help someone get to where they're going, can you imagine all the people that bring along the way with them? Because nobody travels alone. So I love getting people to their dream jobs in tech and things like that. And so that's a big proponent of my channel. I have the LinkedIn series that has helped several hundred people now land jobs. In the last month alone, it's helped almost 50 people land jobs in tech, just that LinkedIn series alone. So definitely recommend that if you want to check that out.
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna link you up in the comment section too, actually.
There you go.
Danny's channel here. All right. So do you see any comments there? Any questions? If you guys have any questions about that, or if you want to get combative with us and challenge us on, I guess, challenging me, because this is my statement. If Danny agrees to it, we can continue from there. But ask the questions about that, or maybe the projects that you're maybe trying to add, or you're hesitant about. Because I had a lot of people were really thankful for that video. They were super scared because they're saying, hey, I got a couple of to-do apps. I barely know what I'm doing, but I'm just trying to get some entry-level position I can learn. And they're super scared to put on tutorials because, like this poor kid, Kenny, I asked him if I can put up his name. So he said, he was okay with that. He was panicking because he just got berated with it. And they feel like that's what's going to happen to them if they bring a project that isn't their own. But if you're just starting, guys, like it's totally fine to do that. So yeah, I want to see 100%. Some of those people that challenged that video. I'd love to see your input here. So we go through that.
Absolutely. I will say I see several questions. So I guess the first one, I guess this is directed at me, but it could be both of us. How much time did you spend learning programming until you got your first job in tech?
You want to take that away, Danny, and then I can get to that?
I will say, and I even said this on the Code Newbie podcast. Oh, I was on the Code Newbie podcast. It was a huge goal of mine. Like one of my biggest goals when I was learning how to code, I was obsessed with that podcast, listening to every single episode. And when I first started on Twitter, I had like 300 followers, just people I knew around town. And I tweeted at them. I was like, hey, I'd love to be on the podcast. And like, oh, well, we got some, guests. And I realized like they want someone that's notable in the area. They're not just picking up someone random. And I messaged them and I took a picture of that. And I wrote on a card. I'm a very big believer in writing my goals on an index card. I place them on my wall. And that way, when I'm slacking off or something, I have to see them. And so if I'm slacking off, I'll say, okay, cool, I'm slacking off. I have this downtime. Have I done enough to get closer to that? If the answer is no, I'm going to start working on it. If the answer is yes, I can take my downtime. But I wrote on that card, I said, I'm going to be on the Code Newbie podcast. And I tweeted back at Code Newbie, I said, I'm going to do enough good to make sure I end up on this podcast. And I was working at it actively, and I made another tweet like 9 months later. Or no, it was 6 months later. And I said, hey, have I done enough good to end up on this podcast? And everyone jumped on like, you need to get him on there. You need to get him on there. We recorded that podcast like 4 months ago, and it just released this morning, and I didn't even know that. So super hype about that. But I even said on the podcast, I hate answering that question. How long did it take me to get a job in tech? How long did I learn? And I'll tell you why. The person that's asking this question, he's been learning for a little while, and right now I'm assuming it's a he because of the profile photo, by the way. He or she is questioning whether they've taken too long, whether they're not cut out for this. I will tell you, it took me 8 months to become a software developer. It doesn't matter if it takes you a year and a half or 8 months or whatever it may be. What matters is you're constantly progressing and reaching that point of getting to your dream. And here's the perfect example I'll give you. One of my best friends, he is my coworker, and it took him 6 years before he got his first job in tech. It took me 8 months. Both of our titles are software engineer. His title took 6 years to become an engineer. He's a software engineer. Our pay is the same. Our benefits are the same. So it doesn't necessarily matter how long it takes you to get to that point, as long as you keep making those small but very consistent steps along that journey to reach that goal. And I don't care if it takes you 8 months, a year and a half, 2 years, as long as you keep your progress, you're getting where you're going. So don't give up. The only guarantee I have for you if you give up is your dream in tech dies. But if you keep moving forward, even at the pace of a turtle, the possibility and the eventuality of your dream still exists. So just keep going.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm the same way with that. Like that question to me is the same as which language is the best or which framework should I learn. It's so relative. Like for me, I think it took me like 3 months of solid learning. It was Python for the first month, and then it was Django for about 2 months, 3 months after that. And then I just went into it. But everyone's situation is going to be completely different, and it's all going to be up to you. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love Python. I spent 4 months learning Python, and then I realized in my area that there are 0 Python jobs. So I had to pivot to Java because my rule is learn the demand of your market, figure out what your market is. If what you know doesn't match your market, you need to have the ability to move to where that demand is, or convey to the demand of the market. Like I get a message every single day saying, "Oh, I know how to use Node, but there's no Node jobs in my area." Well, why did you learn Node if there's no Node jobs and you can't move to where the Node jobs are? Yeah. Like find out what's in your area. Like you can definitely learn whatever you want to learn. You have that option, and I applaud you for it. But if you want to learn Node and everyone's using Java or C# or PHP or whatever it may be, then you've got a problem there. But now if you have nothing but Python jobs around you and you decide, hey, I'm going to learn PHP, that's a terrible decision. Like I wouldn't advise you to do that unless you want to just work on something on your own.
Yeah, I remember that post. Actually, you posted that like 3 days ago, and I don't remember if I commented or not. I should have if I haven't. But that's perfect, because that hesitation, that fear of not starting or trying to pick up a language where it might not be the right one, like you pivoted. Like for me, I don't share this too often, but the first language I actually learned that was a programming language outside of HTML and CSS was VBA. That's Visual Basic for Applications. Like I mean, maybe I can get a job there, but that is not the language to start. But when I started learning VBA, I learned what a variable was, what a for loop was, what a function is, all these sorts of things. So when I pivoted to Python, I didn't have to start from square one. It was syntax and it was adjusting. But in your case, Danny, you went to Python and then you jumped around and you figured it out. But just going forward and making some taking action and making moves is what's going to start you there.
Yeah, I still mess with Python on the side, like to make some fun projects and stuff. I made like a what do you call it, like a Twitter bot and a Discord bot. So I like Python. Python is cool. The amount of libraries it has, and matter of fact, I just made a video. Top 7 programming languages of 2021. I did countless hours of like research into the markets globally, not just in specific areas. And the number 1 language I put on there, even though it's not the language that I use, is Python. Yeah. The opportunities, the income potential, the breadth of the field, like you can't get a stronger language.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I would definitely say Python or JavaScript. Like that's where the most dynamic languages are and where the job market is. Yeah.
All right, we've got a bunch here. I just want to kind of like now, if you click on any of the comments, it'll pop up on the screen.
Oh, really?
So if you see a comment that you like, you just click on it, it'll pop up.
In Streamlabs, right? Or StreamYard?
Yeah, on StreamYard.
Okay. Oh, perfect. So let's I think I had a few I just saw. Let's move it around here. So I gotta allocate gotta give credit to Code with Tommy here. So this is another channel that it's kind of up and coming. Tommy, I actually hosted in that portfolio review. This is actually something awesome. I give a lot of credit to, because he has a YouTube channel. This is actually something, Danny, I kind of want to pivot to this. I said it was kind of risky to have a YouTube channel on your portfolio or on your resume, and it's also not at the same time. So like I applied for about 15 to 20 jobs, I think, right after I quit my last job. and moved on. And I started my YouTube channel. And one of the jobs that I went for, they really didn't like that I had a YouTube channel. So like most cases, they were like, okay, awesome. You're learning. You clearly know what you're doing. And then this one job, and I totally get it. It makes sense. They're like, you know what? We need your commitment. So they didn't really like the fact that I was doing something on the side. And maybe it wouldn't have mattered if I was just doing videos like what you're doing. But I was honest with them. And I said, hey, I don't plan to be here too long. Like I want to be out in like 2 years, maybe max, that I was going to spend there.
Honestly, that reminds me of something that I said the other day as well. You could do everything right and someone's going to hate you.
Yeah.
Like there's literally, you can't make everyone happy. It's impossible. Like, I don't care what you do right. Matter of fact, here's an example. I did a short video on this because this is a topic I talk about a lot. Coca-Cola is the most widely distributed drink in the entire world. Fun fact, it is the second most known word in the entire world, regardless of language, besides the word okay. And there are still people that prefer Pepsi. Like, there's no way around that, right? There are people that don't like me no matter what I do. I've tried to do amazing things to make people love me. They just don't like me. There's no way around it. But they watch my videos. So thank you for the views. But with that being said, there's just no way to make everyone happy. Focus on your lane. Again, you're not going to make every employer happy. There's no way around it. You could kill a coding interview and they won't like one thing about you. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, 100%.
You got to find what's a good fit for you. And here's the thing. A lot of people think, as soon as you get an offer, you need to take it. Sure, I'm sure you can take every offer. I turned down 6 offers before I accepted my first offer in tech. Again, I don't advise that for everybody. I was very stubborn. I had a very clear goal of what I wanted, and those companies weren't matching at that point. It is up to you whether you take the very first offer and you grab the first thing, or you find something that's better for you. But find out what fits you. Don't go somewhere saying, I want to be here for 2 months and then I'm going to find another company for 3 months. Find a good company that you can grow with, learn from, get those resources and the mentorship. That's where you're going to thrive. But if you just grab the first random thing and you're like, man, I really hate this company, but it's a job. Like, don't trade one depression for another. I was in gas stations frying chicken depressed. I didn't want to go to a tech company and be depressed. I wanted to be happy about learning what I'm doing. So find what actually fits you so you can thrive, so you can get those awards and those bonuses and people think that you're the best thing walking. Find that good fit.
Yeah. And one thing about that, even that depressing job, like let's say your plan is to just suck it up for 3-6 months and just do it. Like, I remember when I was interviewing candidates, I was always really hesitant to hire anybody that didn't have job experience. Like I told you about that barista, that was one case. But if they didn't have job experience, that's scary because when you actually jumped into our live stream and mentioned this, nobody wants to. They don't want to be the test bunny for your skills, right? Because they're going to invest time into you, they're going to invest money. But if I see that your job proven, at least I can ask for a review. I know that maybe you're in some form of corporate structure. Maybe sucking it up and getting that job for a little bit and knowing that is, it could work too. But yeah,
I love that you said that. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, you're good. That was it.
I love that you said that because every job offer and every interview that I ever got wanted a college degree and 4 or 5 years of experience, and I had neither. Every job offer I got from companies wanted someone with a degree and 4 years of experience. The job I have now, my first job in tech, which I'm still with the same company now to this day. I was very selective, and this is legit my dream job. Like they have everything that I could ever ask for, and that's why I've stayed here for so long. But they want experience, they want a degree, and I had neither. Think about that for a second. Your objective as a candidate is to recognize and realize that you are an investment. You are valuable. Your objective is to de-risk yourself as an investment and to show your value. If you walk in saying, and I talk about this all the damn time, if you walk into an interview like, oh, just give me a chance, I just need a chance, give me a chance, I just need a chance. You walk in with that begging mindset, people are going to look at, haven't you ever seen someone begging for money on the side of the road? Like you're at a stoplight and they're like walking up to your car and you like divert eyes. It's not that you want to be an a-hole, right? But you're like, I don't want to deal with this right now. It creates this visceral reaction that you can't really explain. When you're going into this interview begging, you're creating that same reaction. But now if you walk in saying, you know what? I'm going to go in with a value mindset. I am valuable. I'm going to bring value to this conversation. I'm going to bring value to this team. I'm going to bring so much value that you're going to love me. And if you bring value, they're going to bring a checkbook. It's as simple as that. No company in the history of the world has ever turned down an opportunity to make money. If you bring value, If you show that you're valuable and you de-risk yourself, whether experienced or not, they're going to take a chance on you. But you need to de-risk yourself. And I'm going to be completely honest. A simple to-do app is not going to be the way you de-risk yourself. You need to do something different that makes you stand out. I always say the difference between two ordinary people is one person did a little bit extra and that makes them extraordinary. You just need a little bit. I'm not saying you need to climb a mountain. Just take that first step and that's going to be a little extra. You just need a little extra. I know we're talking about projects. So one project that I always talk about, and it's kind of like the project that has helped many people land jobs, is making a website. And the example I give is like overstock.com. You have multiple products across multiple pages where they can search and like add things, but you have to have a shopping cart function where they can add that thing to the shopping cart. And when they go to the cart, they see it. Now this is not a 1 hour tutorial project. Like this is a bigger project. It's on the bigger side, but this is the project that you can talk about in an interview and then control that interview with it. I'll give you an example of that too, is if I'm in an interview and someone says, do you know SQL? I can be like, yeah, I know SQL. SQL's great. The most obvious answer. Or you could say, yeah, I know SQL because I actually created an application where we separated city data names between urban and rural. And I use Java on the back end with the API, and then I use Angular on the front end to display that information. Well, now I just took that SQL question. I talked about a project that I had, and I gave them not one, not two, but 3 strong points that I'm on. They're no longer heading down that predestined path of questioning of cookie cutter questions and answers. That's a different project that they've never heard about. Well, what did that project do? Where did you get the API from? What was the API giving? Now you're in your stronghold and you're controlling the outcome. And if I knock them out enough, they're going to fall in love with me.
You're controlling the conversation. That's golden. And I applied for jobs that had a CS degree required. It was like 5 years experience. I had 2 years computer science. I didn't have a computer science degree. When you control that conversation, in my case, I had one project under my belt. It was the only thing that I did, and it was for a company. But because that project was such a large scale project, and like you said, I started controlling the conversation. I talked about the database, what I did with it, how I connected the APIs, and how I figured things out. The conversation shifted to where by the time they looked at my resume or something, let's say there was like two interviewers in that room, one of them would look at it and say, I don't see your computer science degree. But at that point, it was irrelevant. And because you controlled the conversation exactly like what you said, it completely changes things up. You need to control 100%. That conversation. Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to
No.
Just drill that point in because that's golden. That's how you completely change what their requirements are. And you got to remember, it's a wish list when they're putting out those requirements. Like some of them will list way more than a single candidate might have, or they won't even be able to afford somebody that has that much. But they're trying to set the bar high and then see what they can get and filter through that.
Bill Gates doesn't match a job requirement ad. Like it's just as simple as that. Like the best of the best doesn't. Here's one thing that I tell people all the time. If you know 50% of the requirements, apply. Do you know the main languages that they're looking for? Apply. It doesn't matter if you don't match all of the job ad. Just make sure you're matching at least 50%. Here, best case scenario, you apply for that job, they say yes. Worst case scenario, they say no. You're in the exact same position if you didn't reply. But at the very least, maybe you have an opportunity to show them how valuable you are and what you could possibly bring to that conversation. So apply. You don't need to worry about what the job ad says.
So Danny, did you, I want to ask this question or pull up a question. This is actually my wife here. So she's helping me out here and she's asking, what kind of products do you advise to bring in an interview? What kind of skills do employers want to see? So I'm going to start this and say that it's going to be, Solamita, it's completely up to the job, what you're applying for, what you know. So there's no set of perfect projects, but Danny, I want to know what kind of projects did you show, or you went through that backstory. I don't remember. Did you mention anything that you did, or did you just apply? Because you're a networker, like you talk, you're very you control the room. So I can imagine you just walked in somewhere and just demanded the job and they gave it to you. So that's what I can picture happening, but I'm assuming that's not the case.
You know, it's funny. I taught myself how to do all these things. This is what I do in like a lot of our like networking functions and meetups where we're teaching people how to do this, because I didn't know it, especially coming from the gas station industry. Like I had so much imposter syndrome because I had a nickname called Popeyes. I fried chicken for a living, right? I was making no money. I was broke. I was working 80 plus hours a week. I was making just enough money to still be broke. And I'd go to these meetups, and the only way I could time it was I'd get off of work just in time and go straight to that meetup. Well, I'm in that meetup for 20 minutes. The whole room smells like chicken now. And everybody was laughing, calling me Popeyes. And I would brush it off, but in reality, it made me realize I'm not on a level playing field with everybody else in this meetup room. And then something clicked for me. I asked one question that everybody asks when they go to a meetup or whenever they even meet somebody in tech, and that's, how do I get the first job in tech? And I heard the exact same answer over and over and over again, like a broken record. Oh man, that first job is the hardest one. But if you get the first job, every job after that will become easier. To someone like me, that is the worst thing you could tell me in my life. Because not only did you demotivate and demoralize me, you made me question what I've been doing for the last 8 months. So I ended up actually just creating a LinkedIn profile. And I realized something. I said, the chances of these managers and recruiters and all that from these Fortune 500 companies, the chances of them walking in my gas station are zero. So if they say no, I will literally never meet them in my life. Like I will die never meeting them. So what does it matter if they say no? Let me just send the message. And I sent the message in the beginning. I would send out so many messages. In the beginning, they were like, who the hell is this Danny guy? And not like, oh, I love Danny. I knew Danny from the beginning. Danny's the best. But it was coming to terms with that. And one thing that I realized is your projects can speak for you. Meaning, if you have some really cool projects, you don't need to. I have 4 steps to getting a job in tech, but your projects don't need to be curing cancer, and you don't need to do every single YouTube tutorial and add that to your portfolio site. You could have 1, 2, or 3 good projects that showcase your command of the language. And so for me, one of my biggest projects was having a application that I made that you would feed data in, whether through an API or you can enter it. It would search the population density of that area. And if it was under a certain number, it would say this is a rural area. And if it was above a certain number, it would say this is a urban city, like, New York, LA, stuff like that. It would be city. And then if you enter Podunk, Alabama, it would say, hey, this is probably a rural area. So it would look for those data metrics, and it would cross-reference it with the USDA API, where they had, like, for their USDA loans, they would say this is an urban area or rural area, and rural areas had certain loan requirements. So they would give you more benefits to moving to a rural area. The second one was e-commerce platform similar to Overstock.com. The reason why I say that, because you can name that whatever, and that is the kind of, like, when you show that in an interview, people are asking questions right away. And what's funny is you'll actually see the hiring manager, whether they're technical or not, they immediately go to that mouse and start clicking on stuff. And that is what you want. You want them not to just look at it, but interact. And once they interact, you've got them. Once they interact, like, it's yours. But I recommend those. And I mean, I was actually speaking at a university in Canada. And a big goal for me is to help more women get into tech. But this woman in particular, she made an application where it was a Korean language learning application in React. It was not very complex. And I said, this is great because you can keep adding features to make it more complex, right? But if you just say this in an interview, I created a Korean language learning application. That already is going to ask, like, how did you do this? What does it do? Like, what is the function? You've already done something that's different, that piqued curiosity, and which forces someone to ask a question. And that's your objective.
Yeah, I think you answered that perfectly. It's not really about the project itself. It's going back to that, controlling the interview, controlling the questions, controlling how it's discussed and what they say. Like, for me, I always watch. I like the show Shark Tank, and when I watch it, I notice anytime they can get the sharks to start interacting and asking questions, maybe they can get one of them to stand up and try it. I don't think that necessarily means it's going to become the person that they invest in, but you can see that room lighten up and that person becomes more natural and the sharks start liking them. It completely changes that atmosphere. So yeah, I think that's exactly what you're going for there.
Oh, my boy Elon Musk just walked up in the chat, man. I'm glad he came to show me support.
Saw my stream. So there was another question I wanted to. Just saw one, but I keep missing it. It moves too fast for me.
There's a lot. We appreciate all you in the chat. Thank you for hanging out with us. Also, by the way, if you're watching this in the chat and you're enjoying yourself, go ahead and smash that like button. Turn that like button blue, helps us out.
All right. So let's go through these. So it's kind of interesting what you said. I would say the same thing as far as like the getting your, once you have a job, like I would say the same thing in telling you, once you get your first job, it's absolutely like, that's probably one of the biggest things. So I would agree with you there, but I love the way that you elaborated on that, because I was in that position where I didn't have that first job and I just forced my way into it. Like if I were to redo it again and I wasn't working at a company that had the system that was crap that I had the chance to rebuild, I think the alternative route, I would probably end up just finding any company that would give me that opportunity. And I would say, hey guys, I'll work for free. I'll work like when I was in high school, I needed money. My parents never gave me money. We didn't come from that kind of background. So I worked night shift. So I'd come to school dead tired, but I needed the money. So like in this case, I would have that night job or anything I can do in the morning. And I would offer to serve coffee as long as they taught me to. They were able to teach me and plug me in. Like I would do anything to get that experience. But I do think it could be worded in a different way. Like you mentioned, where it's like that was detrimental to you, because to say, hey, I need a job. Well, to get the job, you need job experience. So it's kind of this infinite loop that really takes you nowhere. So
yeah, I really developed the mindset of I didn't care if they were asking for experience. It literally means nothing. The only jobs I never really applied for where it was expressly like specified, like we need a senior developer. If you just need a developer, that is fair game to me, and I'm applying. I don't care. But if you're like, I need a senior developer in PHP, there's nothing I could do there. But if it said just software developer, I was all over that like white on rice. Like it's clear to me that I'm applying to that job right away.
Yeah. So Danny, you're obviously motivated. Like you said, you don't care what they said. If they turned you down, you just went for it. Working hours, going to those meetups. I fully relate to that because I had my day job and I worked till 2, 3 in the morning, and it wasn't good for my health. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I just went all for it. And I think the thing that motivated me was the fact that at this point in my life, I was newly married and I didn't need to motivate myself. Like I had my dreams and ambitions, but I wanted to provide my wife with something better and not have to be away from me for hours at a time and maybe get something remote because she loves to travel. So to me, motivation wasn't really a thing. I stayed motivated because I had my dreams so clear in my mind. Like I can smell the beaches that I wanted to go to. I can see all these places. So that's how I stayed motivated. What got you? Like you seem like you got into it. You really wanted to do it. You obviously weren't a fan of what you were doing, smelling like fried chicken, like you said. What was your biggest drive to do that, and how did you stay motivated? Because that's tough. Like what you have, I resonate with it, but I know that most people really have to go inside to pull that out of them. But what helped you?
I think every single person, like, they're like, I need to get more motivation. It's not that you need to get more. You have motivation. It's unlocking the motivation you already have, right? And that comes from one thing, and people just don't do it. And I talk about this all the time to where people think like I'm some hippie or whatever, but I'm not. It's go in a room right now, like after this, not right now because you're watching us, but after this, go in a room, turn off the lights, turn off all your electronics, sit up on your bed, and just have a conversation with. Ask yourself the questions that you don't want to answer, because most times indecisiveness and indecision comes from the lack of knowing what you really want. And I think once you know what you actually really want, like, what do you want? What do you want? Like, ask, what do you want? Do you want to have a fancy house? Do you want to have a nice car? Do you want to have the vacations? Do you want to have, $100,000 in the bank? Like, what do you want? Here's the thing. You're not going to get a job by saying, I need a paycheck. You get a paycheck from anywhere. That is not a want or a why. But if you get this job, will it give you the ability to provide for your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your husband, your wife, your son, or your daughter? Will getting that job take you from living in a really rough area to living in a nice area? Will that job take you from riding the subway and the bus to now you're driving your own car? Because if that's your why, you're going to make that happen. Something that you think about all the time is something that you're going to achieve, as simple as that. But it's only going to happen when that's something that you really want from deep within. I can't make you want what I want. But if I talk with enough passion, like, you don't see what I see. If you saw what I saw, you'd be typing on this keyboard with me all day long. Like, that disconnect isn't there, right? Like, you're not going to see what I see. So and that's one big thing too, is like, stop seeking validation for your ideas. They're your ideas. Why are you looking at somebody else to validate your dream and your ideas? You know what you want. You know how it makes your heart feel. You know what tugs on your strings. Go get it. What do you think? Dennis over here is going to be like, hey, I see what you want to do. I feel, no, you know what you want. Go make it happen. Like all these, like I think most people don't actually know what they want. They just kind of know what they want. They're like, oh, it'd be cool to be a developer. But why? Do you like the problem solving? Do you like the fact that you're actually getting into a good field that has lucrative income for your family? Like, do you love the fact that you can leave a $20,000 annual average income area to $100,000 average income area? Like, are your kids going to be in better schools? Like, those are driving forces that will change your life. But it doesn't start until you finally go have a conversation with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, I couldn't sleep. I still to this day, like I have this vision of where I want to take my channel and all the dreams that I have for after this whole situation goes away with the world. But man, it keeps me up at night. It's like a coal in your stomach, and that just pushes you. Like there's no need to even motivate yourself. It just drives you to it, and you hit that nail on the head right there. You have to find it. You have to find your why. I'm sure we've all heard that, but people still need to hear that. And that's what's going to get you over those bugs. I mean, you obviously there's strategies to work through it, to make it more enjoyable, to understand that bugs and all that are part of the process and having to run into these issues that take a week to resolve. But when that passion's there, you're just going to find it. Like it's going to happen because that pain is not going to override that desire that you have. And that has to be the leading factor. So we have another one, how to get rid of anxiety from a walk-in presentation in your project. So job related, like I think I can start this one just because I'm like right now, this is my first live stream. I joined a few, but my first live stream, like I started like hyperventilating. Like this was with Justin Mitchell, and like I'm trying to feel calm and collected, but I can't command a room like you do. I just do my thing, and I'm passionate about it. But when I'm put on the spot, man, like my heart starts racing. But for me, that walk-in presentation, it was because I knew what I was doing. And I just put so much time into studying it. And I know that's not always going to be the case. So that's probably not the best answer because some of you guys are going in for that entry-level position. But maybe learning how to warm up the room a little bit better and keeping it, understanding that you can go through hundreds of these interviews, knowing that, hey, there's probably even a good chance you're going to fail this one, and just use it as a practice experience. Don't put all your hope into one interview, because once that doesn't go your way, sometimes you can ace that interview, but they might just not need exactly what you're capable of. And then it has nothing to do with you. So if you understand that, I'm just going to do a bunch of these. If I fail one, well, I'm just one step closer. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he talked about lifting in the gym room or in the weight room. And he talked about being happy when he was lifting and everyone around him was pissed and in pain from being sore. And he said, every rep that I did meant that I'm just one step closer to my goal. So for me, it was that. It was knowing that if I deal through that process, it doesn't matter what the outcome of one is. I'm just going to continue with it and just trying to make a game out of it, trying to make life itself a game and just enjoy that process and almost see myself in the future having that job and remembering this as one of those interviews I failed. Now, lucky for me, it didn't turn out that way because I had that experience, but allowing myself to just unwind. And like right now, if this interview, if we just bomb, like whatever, like that's just life. This is a funny story that I'll share, and I'll talk about my first live stream that I failed. Like that doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't faze me anymore. How about you? 100%. What's that? How about your anxiety? I mean, you have public speaking skills, it seems like, so maybe.
Well, now, but yeah. It was, I mean, I wasn't public speaking before I had a job at tech. Like I can tell you right now, like nobody wanted to hear the chicken guy talk. Like that wasn't putting people into a room. And to be honest, I didn't have the confidence I have now when it comes to speaking. I mean, again, like I do, 3 to 4 talks a week, give or take, with universities and colleges and boot camps and all this and that. And I spoke at Google and Microsoft, so I'm comfortable now. I spoke at Amazon. Like I'm comfortable now compared to then. But I will tell you one thing that I love failure. Like I think people are terrified of failure, and that's fine. You can be scared of it. But here's one thing I'm going to tell you right now. You are going to fail at least 100 times before you die. Surprise, spoiler alert, there it is. Now you know you're going to fail 100 times, so go fail. Now that you know you got 100 ahead of you, just go fail 100 times. Simple, get it out the way. Yep. Here's the thing for me. I don't care if I fail in an interview or not. I interviewed a lot on purpose because I said, matter of fact, okay, I'll share this. I bombed my first interview hard. I bombed that interview, and I'll tell you why. I went on freecodecamp.org, and that's how I was learning. And I had just started learning JavaScript. I was completely new to it. I barely knew what an array was, right? Like I just started it, and I had been applying to jobs, and I convinced one company to give me a call back. And I was super excited, and I was building it up, like, oh man, because you read those blog posts like, oh, I got a job in 3 months or 90 days to become a developer, and I remember I got dressed up because I was like, play the part you want to be, even though it's a phone interview, right? Like I got dressed up, like it was way before Zoom and all that, and I get this phone call, like, and I'm sweating, like I got like a towel next to me and I'm wiping it off, right? I'm sweating, I'm so excited, like, and right away, like they asked me about me and I'm talking, like it's going good. And like, all right, so do you know JavaScript? I was like, yeah, I know JavaScript. I'm working in JavaScript now. I'm making a project and da 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 da. And like, well, do you know React? And I was like, yeah, I know how to React. Happy, sad, mad. What are you talking about? I didn't know React was a framework yet. I didn't get that far in the free code camp curriculum to know that it was a framework. Oh, I just... So I like how you could audibly hear somebody's disappointed. They went from to this was going to be an hour, but we're going to knock this down to 5 minutes. I didn't know anything, but I loved that interview because it showed me that I wasn't ready for the market yet. But now I know what I need to prepare myself for. And I ended up not even learning React at the time. I'm learning React now, but at that time, like my path ended up taking me to Angular because Angular and Java pair well together. But like, if it wasn't for that huge stupid failure, I never would have been able to prepare myself. And I think one thing with a lot of beginners is they see all these ads with like, you could become a developer in 90 days, right? You know the show 90 Day Fiance? They can't get a fiance in 90 days. You're going to get a brand new career. Like, think about that, like the pressure you're putting on yourself to say, I need to get this done in 3 months. Otherwise I'm a failure. That's not realistic. Like some people may be able to do it, but more often than not, it's probably going to take you a little bit longer. Yeah. Be caring on yourself and the pressure you're putting on. But to get rid of that anxiety, honestly, it's just through failure. Fail. If you walk in an interview saying, okay, either this is going to go really good or this is going to be a really good learning experience, either way, you're walking away a winner. So you might as well walk away with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny, Danny. When I first saw you on Twitter, I saw you because we followed similar people. You were in the recommended feed, and I saw your post. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know what to think about you at first, just because I saw this motivational stuff, and I was like, all right, here's another guy that's gonna just encourage everyone, but not really gonna tell them what the job market is. But you definitely don't tiptoe around it. You tell them right up, like you just straight up, like, yeah, you could get that job in 90 days, but you're probably not. Like that. I love that because a lot of people need to hear that. It's easy to try to grow online, trying to just, constantly motivate everyone. Everyone likes to hear that they're special and different from everyone else, but you're bringing it like it is. And that's awesome. Like that's so true. Use those stories. I put out my story and how I sold that website for $41,000. And I told people like, hey, this is probably not going to be everyone. Like I put it out because it's a story. It's encouraging. I get encouraged by that stuff, but you need to understand it's more to show possibility, but this is not going to be the case. Like it took me 3 months before I got my first job, before I was in the field, but I know people that have been at it for years and that they just have to work around it. Like the reality is going to be different, but you definitely don't tiptoe around that. I like that.
For me, I think I would rather, if I sugarcoat it, you're going to eat it, right? Yeah. I would rather, my goal isn't to hurt your feelings. My goal isn't to be an a-hole or like, just be like, oh, this guy. My goal is I need to tell you directly what is wrong. You take that action to fix that, and we produce the most positive results we can in the shortest period of time. My goal isn't to tell you, hey, yeah, what you're doing is great. Keep heading down this path for another year or two, and we'll figure it out. No, my goal is, all right, you've done this for 6 months. It's not working. Let's pivot now and make the next 3 months count. Yeah. Let's pivot now and make sure you make up for all that lost time you had. But if I just go in there telling you, oh, this is cool, and not telling you the truth, like a lot of our friends will lie to us. Our family, because they love us, they're like, oh, that's great, right? But that's not the reality of it. You need to find out how you stack up in the job market, and if something is lacking, let's fix it. And the only way you're going to get that is brutal honesty. And for me, I try to be honest about everything. I'm honest about all my failures. I'm honest about all my accomplishments, and I'm honest about everything in between. Because my goal is, if I failed, I want you to learn from it so you don't have to fail. But if I succeeded, I want you to know about that too, so you can do the same. And now I don't have a $41,000 website, but I will tell you the very first website that I ever sold was to a Mexican restaurant for $1,800. I literally walked in a Mexican restaurant. I was eating there. I was like, man, this food is fire. And I opened the website up on my phone, and I was like, oh, this website sucks. And I don't mean that in a oh, I'm a developer. I wasn't really a developer at that time. I was still learning. But I said, damn, this site sucks. And I was like, the reason why I was so mad was I wanted to find out what their hours of operation were. I was on the site and I still didn't know it.
Yeah.
And so I asked to speak to a manager. We spoke. I told him, I was like, look, you can get this done anywhere, but you need this, this, and this done, and your website will be fantastic. And next thing I know, the owner comes out. I was like, could you do it? I was like, I could do this in about 2 weeks. Boom. He's like, how much? I didn't know what the hell the price of the website was. Like, I never sold a website before. So I was like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I want $1,000. I'm going to throw out 1,800. He's going to come back at 1,000. I'm like, done. Give it to me before you change your mind. Right? Like, before you realize I'm a free code camp guy, I'm going to take your money. And no, $1,800. He loved the product. And what's funny is when he did a revision a year later, I came in there, I did it for $4,000, redid the whole front end. It's just a static website where you got your menus, PDFs, and like a call to action to go to Uber Eats. Like, how much easier can it be? And you're doing that. They're happy and they're making money. That's what you're there for, to solve and create solutions for businesses. And $1,800 changed my life.
Yeah, so I've done that probably 15, 20 times. Like when it wasn't freelancing. We actually had a web dev company, but I've done that a lot. And then I get people responding saying, hey, I walked into a coffee shop just like you did and it didn't work. What do I do? We'll move on. Like that. That's the brutal honesty that I like that you give. That's just not always gonna be the case. Maybe you can readjust, rebuttal, but don't try to convince them. It's just not gonna happen sometimes. Like I think I probably pitched about 250 people. Sometimes it just goes dead on and it gets, you get what you want, but in many cases it's not gonna be the case, or many situations. So I have a question, actually. This is one I had for you. It was about remote work. Where is that? Just went out of my feed here. So I'm going to ask it and then I'll try to pull it up whenever we're ready. So it was about a beginner applying for remote jobs. Should beginners apply for that? And this is kind of interesting to me because I always started out in my own field. I just went for it, and I always saw my clients. I never really worked with the remote clients, but what do beginners, or what do people who work remote do? And what do beginners do? Because I think if you're working remote as a beginner, it's a little bit more challenging because you don't really have that room to mess up. Like, it's kind of all on you, but when you're in person, you can deal with a little bit more. I feel like you need more experience to be remote. What do you think?
100%. I will be honest. It's definitely challenging to become a remote developer on your first job. And I honestly get this question probably 15 times a day now. Here's the fact of the matter. COVID happened. A lot of people lost their jobs. 30 million Americans lost their jobs. Many software developers lost their jobs. You currently have senior software developers taking mid-level positions because they need to put food on the table. You have mid-level developers taking lower positions. They're just taking whatever they can to get into the field, right? So if this is your market, if this is what you're going against, you need to be so damn good that they have to give you the job.
Yeah.
That. You need to be so damn good that when you walk into an interview, they're like, God, I wish I could give this to somebody else. I just can't. You're that damn good. Or you need to be so damn good that if you have a difficult name to pronounce, before the interview, they're like, how do you say this? And then after that interview, they're studying it so they never make that mistake again. If you're that damn good, you're going to get the job. But if you come in with the bare bones basics, right? If you come in here with a website that looks like it's made in MS Paint, you have a problem. It's not going to come. Simple as that. Like, I can tell you, I spoke to somebody who is in America, who is in my area, who has been looking for a job for 6 years. They messaged me on LinkedIn. They were actually responding to a comment. I was like, whoa, 6 years you've been looking. I was like, all right, you and I need to have a conversation. I can help you out with that. Like, you've been doing this 6 years. You have to have at least a good portfolio site. You have to have some understanding of the language and the knowledge. We get to talking, and I'm like, well, what's your portfolio site look like? They send it to me. I literally looks like, I kid you not, it looks like someone took MS Paint, green background, and they just took like the oval shape and was making oval navigation buttons. I was like, what is this? Like, you think any employer is going to look at this and be like, oh, you've been studying for 6 years? I was like, 6 years, I expect you I'm not expecting you to make like an IBM level application, but I am expecting you to have a presentable portfolio site. 6 years, you couldn't get a Gatsby site? Like, 6 years, you couldn't get a template? 6 years, you couldn't do something to make a more presentable site? If you can't make that effort in 6 years, how can I make the effort to help you? 6 years. Like, I'm expecting you to know something, right? 6 years we're talking about. We're talking about more than half a decade. But when you're doing the bare minimum, you can only get the bare minimum results.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a little bit extra, you're bringing more to the, like, a lot of people stop at HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript. Now, is it possible to get a job in that? Sure. Is it the most optimal to stand out in the market? Absolutely not. I'd rather you pair a library framework with that. Now you're standing out as a front end developer. React, Vue, whatever it may be that's in demand in your area. But if your objective is just to get a remote position, I would say try to find one locally, then leverage that experience to get a remote. But if you're trying, I need to get remote no matter what, unless you're bringing some heat to the table, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. This is something I like to tell people that they don't really want to hear. But when you're applying for a job or you're trying to get, let's say, those freelance gigs, you have the audacity to tell people that, hey, there's other developers that can do this, but I'm better than them. But if they're putting in all that work and you're willing to put in only that minimum requirement, then you really have no right to complain that you can't get that job or you can't get that gig, because you got to understand there's other people putting in more work than you. So you have to be able to put that in. You can't just expect that.
Yeah. So make some good projects, stand out, and use that to showcase. Matter of fact, here, I'll explain it. I have 4 steps to landing a job as a developer, whether it's remote or local or whatever. Number 1, you have to have a strong LinkedIn profile. Every month, 95 million active users of the 675 million that LinkedIn has, 95 million of them are hiring managers, decision makers, and recruiters for businesses. Like, you need to stand out where they hang out. If they were hanging out at a bar, I'll tell you, get your butt to that bar. Well, they're on LinkedIn, so get your butt on LinkedIn. Make a good profile that works for you. My LinkedIn series, go to youtube.com/dthompsondev. That LinkedIn series alone will help you stand out. You could literally see, it blows my mind. People that are qualified for jobs are literally sending me messages. I checked out your LinkedIn series a week ago, and in a week, I've got my final interview for this position. In a week, I've got recruiters contacting me. These people had the qualifications for the job. They just didn't know how to get people to know that they had the qualifications. That LinkedIn series will absolutely change your life in that respect. Step number 2, you have to have good portfolio site. Now, I don't necessarily say you have to really code it from scratch, and I'll tell you why. 99% of hiring managers have never written a line of code in a day in their life. Like, they've never written HTML, nothing. Like, they don't know nothing. They're given a job requirement list. They've put it on there. They're trying to find someone that matches it. When you have a portfolio site, it's like your business card. Like, you're just handing it over, right? If it is aesthetically pleasing, they, on a subliminal level, they trust it with their eyes. Like, oh, if they have this site, surely they know what a good site looks like. They then pass that over to the hiring manager or decision maker for that role. And that is where step number 3 comes in, your portfolio items. This is where you show your command of the language. This is where you show what you know. This is where you prove, I know X, Y, Z. And this is where you shine, baby. This is where you shine. These are the projects. You don't need to have 50 projects in there. You can have 1, 2, 3 good projects that pique interest, that you can talk about and that show you that you know what you know. We're not putting to-do list on here. We're putting actual real projects. You put those projects, that is where you're going to go. And step number 4, you have to have a good resume that passes the ATS software. It's an automatic software that's searching for keywords. You should be tailoring your resume to that to make sure you're matching certain keywords that they're looking for, because that's the only way a human is ever going to see it.
So is that a paid course that you have? It's not like
no, I never charge for anything I do.
Yeah. Well, one day maybe you should. You got to benefit off of that. Yeah.
Well, so here's my thing.
If you come out with something, Danny, like the stuff that you're saying is on fire, I would definitely promote that.
Thank you.
You're saying good things.
Yeah, I don't charge for it only because I remember when I was looking for a job, there was really no resources to guide me. And I saw all these people that were incredible human beings going in the same thing. So all this came from, this is me helping people. And I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. We have some of the lowest cost of living in the country, but we also have some of the lowest cost of earners in the country. We have an area in particular where the annual average household income is $18,000 per household, $4,000 under the poverty line, right? Like, these are people that are already, in American consideration, they're poor as hell, right? Like, obviously, compared to some developing countries, it may be a better situation, but overall, for American standards, they're very, very poor. They need assistance. They're not getting it by on their own. So if I could take one of these people and put them in a position, give them the courses, the resources, the meetup group that we have, the community to help them, and they now land a job where they're making $80,000 a year, I just changed that house. They're now generating 4.5 times the average household income. By doing that, now schools are benefiting, right? Like,
Yeah.
If I can get one person, I change their house. If I can get 20 people, I change that neighborhood. Now the schools are benefiting, they're paying more taxes, so the kids are benefiting. Not only that, we're deterring gang violence, drug violence, and gun violence, but we're also removing the number one reason for divorce in these communities, financial issues.
Absolutely.
Just by giving them the learning resources and the materials they need. So for me, my objective isn't money. If that was my objective, I would do this whole thing totally differently. That my goal is honestly just helping the people in my community. That's what I'm aiming for. I have nothing against someone that charges for something. It's just my personal goal. I'll tell you this. I used to be so obsessed with the idea of making the most amount of money possible. I had like an epiphany at like 31. I said, I'm no longer obsessed with trying to make the most amount of money as possible. What I am obsessed with is trying to leave the world in a little bit better shape than the way I found it. My time is going to come, whether it's next week, next month, next year, next decade. I just want it to be in a little bit better shape. Simple as that. That's all I can do. We're all going to pass. And so you can either pass with a fat wallet or you can pass with, your community in a better situation for your kids and the kids after us. So that's the path I've taken.
Well, maybe one day you can have a premium upsell or something like that, because we do want to make sure you get your money's worth there. You're putting in effort, and what we're teaching people is you're not working for free either. Like I love, that's honorable what you're doing. I'm the same way. Like I do have my paid content, but I like to at least make sure that they can start off. I want to make sure
you put out gems, like you drop gems on here. Like I've seen several of your videos, like you're dropping straight knowledge. And I mean, that's beyond admirable. Like no one gives that stuff out for free. So yeah. Absolutely.
So I want to add to that. I want to give some tips here to this this remote work. So something that I did actually, most of our jobs were locally, but something that a lot of people don't realize, if you can actually build up your skills, and let's say you do live in one of these countries that let's just say there's just no work around there. I don't know. I can't really think of any, or can't think of exact locations, but there's areas where you're just not going to be able to walk in like you did and upsell somebody for that. Starting to work with other freelancers. This is just a tip I want to give away. If you can help out some freelancers, maybe start by doing it for free or doing some work and helping them. That in building that relationship, there's a lot of freelancers that get projects that they don't know something about. So there's times where like we would connect with other freelancers and they would say like, hey, I don't have the ability to do this part right here. You want to take this client, or do you want to help me out? Or they would say, hey, I'm just inundated with work. Can you take this client for me? And that way I can have a referral, still have that relationship. Or it was the other way around, where we would give away work because we got to the point where we had 4 developers and we were just inundated with work, and we gave away clients. So connecting with other freelancers, you're now talking about people with experience. You have to help them. Do not message somebody and say, hey, I want to work with you and can you send me jobs? That's just not the way to do it. No one's going to respond to that. If they do, I don't know what's going on there, but you got to offer them something. But to connect with other freelancers, now, if you're not the sales rep, they can broker the deal with you, or they can refer them to you. But that's a huge asset that I saw, that I picked up on early, was other freelancers, because they're in the market. If they're established, that's golden. Like that's my only thing I can say for remote work, because I've never done what a lot of people have to do. Most of my stuff was here, but referring each other.
Yeah, and one thing, like, and I've seen a couple questions related to this, but like, you don't necessarily have to have I have to have a remote job. There is a whole world of solutions that you can offer, whether it's freelancing, whether it's Upwork, whether that's contacting businesses and like creating solutions for them. Even if you need to create like 2 or 3 like test sites to show your portfolio of work, saying, hey, I've made this before, just so you have something to show people, because people don't like buying something that they're unsure about. So again, de-risking yourself as a candidate, you have that proof of like, hey, I can make sites like this. Now you have a portfolio work that they can choose off of.
Yeah. So a quick tip too, you mentioned the fact that a lot of the hiring managers will have never written a line of code. So I personally am not a fan of HTML and CSS. Not that I don't like it, have anything against it. I just don't care to write it. Like that's just not where my interest lies. But if you notice my tutorials, even in the tutorials, I do have my wife help me. I do come up with designs and I spend time on it. In fact, sometimes it takes me just as long to create the design as it does to create the entire course, which I hate because I don't want to spend my time there. But a lot of times you'll see a website and you'll think, oh man, that's sexy. But if you look at the back end, it's crap. And then there's times where I'll see a website with all this great functionality, but the design is so bad that it doesn't attract me. So if a hiring manager sees this site and it just looks beautiful, even if you're not a CSS guy, you still got to do something there to make it look appealing, because it's first impressions. It's like being a great developer and showing up in a sweatpants and a hoodie, like, whatever your opinion is of that. Like, you need to present yourself. In your case, you dressed up for that phone interview. Like,
yeah,
I'd say it's the least important yet the most important part of every project, the design, because that's what people see.
I mean, you can get a template for $10. Like if that's like really your goal, like if you're like, look, I'm a back end dude and I don't know nothing about front end. Like I was back end for a long time until I really honed my front end skills. Like you need, if you're just, I'm back end all the way. Cool. Spend $10, literally the equivalent of a McDonald's meal, right? Spend $10 and go get that template and get all the work done for you and just fill in the text fields. Like it doesn't have to be this big arduous thing that you hate. It can just be something simple, but you need to present yourself in a way that makes them want to invest in you. Simple as that. Yeah. We do have a question that I know they've asked a couple times if we get asked this. And the question was, and I would love to hear your take on this since you were in the hiring part, because my take might be different. I was wondering, what are the best questions to ask in an interview? What do they, like when they ask you, do you have any questions for me? What do you ask?
So if I can give you what I've asked and what I've liked, I'm trying to think of the questions that I liked. To me, as a hiring manager, I really liked when people would ask me about the project and specifics. When they went into maybe not too much detail, like did you use Axios or the Fetch API to get, to make those requests, but details on how this project flows, where maybe to ask something like, where do you see me plugged in? What exactly do you see me doing? Where can I help? But putting themselves in that position, because what you're doing as the person asking that question, me as a hiring manager, I'm already putting you into that position. You're almost like inceptioning me to already imagine you in that role. I'm already filling that role with you in there. So if you're asking questions like that, it shows me that you're interested in the actual work. Like you're going beyond some of the basics and you want to know what the job is about. It tells me that you're interested in working on good projects, and passionate people make for good employees, developers, or whatever you want to call that. So if you're asking me questions there, you're really helping me picture you in that position, and then we can create a more natural conversation. Because if the conversation is just Q&A, like, what do you think? How would you do X, or how would you do A, and then you give me B, and then we just go back and forth. It's almost like a robotic conversation. But if we start talking about that conversation, we both get relaxed. I can lean back in my chair. I'm not feeling like I have to sit and present to you. It just makes it more casual. So specifics about the job and going into that kind of stuff, I think is the first thing I can think of, but maybe I can come up with something later. What do you think?
So my normal go-rounds are, well, the first question I was, well, why is this job position open?
That's good.
Who did you fire? Who did you fire? Why did they quit? What did they do? What was wrong with this company that they wanted to leave? And so now they say, okay, well, they left because of this, or we're trying to hire for this. The other one is, and this is one of my favorite questions to ask, okay, and this is going to make you stand out from others, in my opinion. You're in that interview and you say, okay, I have a question for you. I don't really like doing things on short-term plays. I would love to know if this is a company that offers me a lot of upward growth, because I don't want to just go with a company for a short period of time. I'd rather be with a company I can grow with instead of go with. And that has always been very good for me to show what the upward potential is, what the company culture is in regards to keeping employees for long times, or is the average turnaround for this company 12 months? Like, do people stay here for 10 years or do they stay for 12 months? These are things that I would want to know as well.
That's good, because you're showing that you care about more than just a paycheck, and at the same time you're vetting the company. The interview's a two-way process. Like at the end of the day, you're both making a decision of, do you want to go into this? Yeah,
if you can make them qualify themselves, they're going to be like, whoa, this guy knows what he's talking about, or he's about his business. That puts them. And here's the other thing. I say this in interviews. I was like, look, we can go down the pre-questions that you have, or let's have a conversation, because I feel like we're going to learn more about each other in that process. And you'll instantly see the hiring manager, they want to have a conversation too. Number one, their objective is to find out as much about you as possible. But we all know, hey, what's your best strength, or what's your worst weakness? Like, these are stupid questions. Like, it's so dumb.
My weakness is I care too much. Yeah. So I have a question about open source. I know it's not directly related, I guess, to the job market here, but what do you think about participating in open source projects as a reference? So I've never done this. I mean, this is something that maybe you've participated in. I mean, I've more worked alone. I've hired a few people, but I don't have that much experience in like working in that team environment or open source. Do you have any opinion on this?
It's like prayer. It can't hurt, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, will it hurt? Like,
yeah,
if you're wanting to cover all the bases to give yourself the best possible hand, why not do it? Even if it's just one open source contribution, it helps. Now, don't do some stuff. Censored myself. Don't do some stuff like Hacktoberfest, where it's like, oh, I added a word to read me. No,
yeah.
no, no. Do something valuable that you can talk about.
So if you brought that to me and you showed me like an actual project that you contributed and actually had real effect on, I would love that, because that's a team environment. That's actually something that a lot of coders, at least from my experience, like seems like a lot of people have a hard time working with each other. Like I would rather just take on a project by myself and know every component of it, know what I'm doing, than to actually work with somebody. Not that I would rather do that, but that just seems like the easier route. So if you're working with somebody and it becomes more personalized and just contributing, like you said, Danny, just a few things there. Yeah, it depends on what the actual project was. And then I have a
Hey,
go ahead.
could you do something in the brand area? Can you press like at the bottom? You'll see one that says "Show Names." Can you show names? Because people in the comments are asking like, "Who am I?" And I was like,
Oh
"Oh,
shoot.
we went through the intro in the beginning, but maybe they can look up my name."
Yeah, let's do that. So we have okay, I'm on brand right now.
It should be all the way at the bottom.
At the bottom, show display name. So that's on. Is
Yep.
that because the comments? Maybe I should remove the comment.
No. Oh, it should be on ours.
Oh, let me take off the banner. That's probably what's causing it. There we
There
go.
we go.
Yeah, sorry about that, Danny. I
There
want to
we
make
go.
sure Danny gets credit, guys. Again, make sure to check out his YouTube channel, D Thompson Dev. Awesome stuff there. So let's get to one more comment. I'm assuming now the comments will go under here. We had one about WordPress, and this is cool because a lot of people don't know, and I mentioned this before, where I had a web development company, and then I learned how to code, and people like that just blew people's mind. Yeah, I had a web development company before I learned how to code. I learned HTML and CSS to beef up my WordPress themes, but most small businesses didn't need anything beyond the basic WordPress side. So let me read the question. Is WordPress and PHP good for solo freelancers? How would you solve the stigma about WordPress developers not being a programming job? Well, if you're going for, there's a lot of agencies that just build in WordPress, so that stigma doesn't really matter because they already understand that. And to your clients, they don't really care what you build it in. Most clients do not care. They see the end product, and that doesn't really mean anything. Like I've never been asked what technology are you using for this? Maybe they'll ask, am I going to get access to it? Can I write my own blog post? But yeah, I don't really care about the stigma. PHP is great. So is WordPress. Absolutely. Like that's the simple answer.
I will tell you, I just did a video, released it today, and I did a ton of research into this. And that is, what are the top 7 languages of 2021? Spoiler alert, number 1 was Python. And I actually put that at the very beginning. But on that list, I also have PHP. Here's a fact. Companies don't make fast changes. There are Fortune 500 companies and global enterprise level corporations all over the world that PHP is a big portion of their code base. I feel like people that say like, "Oh, PHP is a terrible language," these are the fools that either never used PHP before or they jumped on the bandwagon and be like, "Oh, PHP sucks." PHP with Laravel is phenomenal. I'm not a PHP developer, but I've experimented. It is fantastic. Like PHP can do some amazing stuff. There's nothing wrong with PHP besides the memes. All right, simple as that. It needs to stop because it doesn't work anymore. Every language has their issues. Python has issues. Like spacing is stupid. Like the fact that you can break a whole program with one extra space is foolish. But like JavaScript has issues. Python has issues. PHP has issues. C# has issues. Java has issues. Every language has issues. There's not one language in the world where it's like, oh, this is like sleeping. Like this is so easy, and my whole life is good. Even Scratch is a pain in the butt to work with sometimes, right? Like when I'm teaching kids how to code, like I rack my brain, right? There's nothing wrong with PHP. Here's the fact. Most small businesses want WordPress sites because they're easy for them to maintain later when they want to change pictures, when they want to update. WordPress is a viable solution for small businesses. Now you do have the headache of dealing with like, well, they could get hacked, but who's really hacking Sally's beauty salon where she has her menu prices, right? Like nobody. Like think about that in the scheme of what you're doing. Now, if you're working on a website where like, hey, we're dealing with customer data, a WordPress site is not going to be the one that you want to use in that situation. You want to come up with a better solution.
Yep.
But again, going back to what we said earlier, you as a developer must Solve the needs and problems of that business. That is your objective. An algorithm solves a problem. You deliver a solution. That is the difference as a developer. You need to deliver a solution, and that has to be the best solution. So if it's for a small business, WordPress is great. If it's for a bigger business, you're going to have to make something better.
Amen. I have nothing else to add to that. That's perfect.
Yeah, that was the question we asked.
Yeah. So Spencer here, I was wondering about the best questions. That's questions. Oh, I had another one. It was about a backend. Where was that? There was somebody asking about. Gosh, somebody asked about backend questions in an interview. So let me close this one out. So they asked, what kind of questions do you get in a backend interview? So that's all going to depend on the job, who's asking the questions, what they're looking for. In my case, they were really curious about the database that I used. When they saw the project that I built, they didn't need to ask me about what I knew because that explained what I knew. So, for example, like if I'm hiring a complete beginner, I want to know, do you know basic CRUD operations? Do you understand how to build out an API if that's what I need? Do you know how to handle authentication? So the questions are going to completely change up to what you're doing. But because I had a project, we skipped that and they started asking me about the database that I used, how I hosted that database, a few questions into that, but that's going to completely vary. I'm just going to say that if your projects can show that you know a lot, and it's also going to depend on who's asking that question. So it's going to vary. It's kind of hard to say. Like completely depends what they need you for, because maybe they only need you to build out APIs. Like why would they even ask you database questions? Maybe they have somebody for that. So that's
also why, like, I hate people that have resumes where they have like a percentage, like, oh, JavaScript 70%. How did you come up with that number? Number one, like, did you take a test that said 70% of all the JavaScript in the world? No, you came up with that number because you were like, oh, this is what I feel. I know 70% of JavaScript. I feel like I'm lacking 30%. Well, number one, what if you know 100% of what the job requires? You've just discounted yourself. Why would you do that? Now I'm not confident in your abilities because you're like, you know what? You may not have all the skills I need for a JavaScript developer. I'd rather pass on and go to the next person. Remove those percentages. Don't worry about them. Be confident in your skills. I don't remember why you went down this tangent, by the way. So you said something that sparked this, but yeah, don't use those percentages.
So I'll give you another perspective on that. So I agree with you that they're not like, they don't do anything, but I still know how to interpret those. Like when people brought them to me, I'll give you somebody that's been in this position. Again, it's going to change on who the hiring manager is. Like they never really bothered me because maybe they don't really know how to design the site and they feel like, hey, this looks cool. It does show me that maybe if you said 70% JavaScript and then everything was below that, it tells me that maybe that's where you're most confident. But you're right, that percentage is matched up against nothing. So it might be better to elaborate on that. But I was able to interpret those. I'll definitely still ask questions. I think there's better ways to do it. I do think they should probably be removed. But yeah, I just give you that perspective of I was able to interpret it, and then I just forced them to explain more. Like why didn't you give yourself 100%? In JavaScript, or why did you only list HTML at 40% or whatever? Yeah, it's an interesting counter, I guess, because I know that everyone does start attacking those. And one issue that I have with our world is that we tend to hop on trendy things, and that's been kind of like the talk where now it almost seems like a crime to do it, which I don't think it is. It's just not good to necessarily, but you're going to be fine if you have it. Like it's not going to, like I agree with your point, I guess. What's that?
Tech jumps on trends like no other. Remember, Dino's killing Node. Nobody will ever use Node again. The whole internet lost their minds, and nobody's using Dino. So,
how many Dino jobs are there?
It didn't make it on the top 7 list. Spoiler: the top 7 list that I did for jobs, it's not on there.
Yeah. What advice? Let me pull up this one. I haven't read it fully yet, but what would you advise? I started coding in Python and okay with Django. I have an opportunity to learn either Node or React in a scholarship bootcamp. I mean, are you ready to go into the market? Just go with Python and Django. Why would you go to Node? If you have time and you want to pick up something else, why not go there? Just make sure you don't jump on the shiny ball syndrome wagon there. Like, don't just try to learn everything. Danny, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a perfect example of shiny object syndrome. Like, you want to just keep learning things. And I know as developers, we're always learning. But if you have job potential in your area for Python and Django, that's exactly where I would be. If you're like, you know what, there's Django potential, but I need something to display it with, or I need or Python potential, but I need a front end language that's more popular like React. Then yeah, learn JavaScript and React. But I don't think you need React Node and Python Django. I think you need to pair things. Like for example, Java Angular is a pair and a stack that a lot of companies use. Find a stack in your area that people use, and then learn that. Like I didn't start learning Java Angular because I was like, oh, I just feel like this would be pretty. No, I was actually researching my area. I was contacting developers in my area. I said, what do you guys code in? And Memphis, honestly, is a very C# heavy town. We have .NET opportunities everywhere. But the 10 companies that I wanted to work at all use Java. And I was like, well, that is what I want to learn because that is where I want to be. And so I learned what the demand of my market was. Learn the demand of your market, whatever it may be, and then you'll always find opportunities within it. But if you're just picking up random things because you see them on Twitter, take social media with a grain of salt. If we believed everything on Twitter, there would never be another developer besides Python developers and JavaScript developers. Like that is all Twitter and Instagram is. So make sure you're learning what the demand of the market is.
Yeah. So Spencer likes your speaking style. Do you have any training material for public? I'll just add to this. He's on LinkedIn, but Danny, he has his YouTube channel. You got to check that out. D Thompson Dev, LinkedIn, Twitter. Yeah. If you wanted to expand on that.
Yeah, I'm on all social media with D Thompson Dev. You can find me anywhere, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, eHarmony. No, I'm kidding. That's my wife. My wife hates that joke. No, but I don't really do anything with public speaking. I've been asked to, but I don't think what I'm operating on, and a lot of I bring passion when I talk, and the reason for that is number one, I'm very passionate about what I'm speaking about, so it helps, right? But number two, if I can bring enough passion for me and you're going to get passionate and you'll pick it up, right? So that helps. When I bring enough passion for the both of us, you're going to then react passionate. You're going to feel what I feel. You're going to see what I see, and then you're going to do what I ask you to do. And that is going to, in turn, bring you the results that you want to get. That is why I do this. So I don't necessarily think you need public speaking, more along the lines of you need to find out what you really want in life. And once you know that and you identify that, it's very easy to speak passionately about that. Yeah. Some people are passionate gamers and they can talk all day long about different video games, right? That's something that they're into. Just find out what you're into and you can talk about it.
So I do think with the latest, the way that I've seen the tech YouTube, Twitter, everyone connect, I do think you are going to be speaking in public soon. I think when the world settles down, we're definitely going to have to organize some kind of conference in Las Vegas or wherever, and we'll have some fun with it. I know we will, so I'm excited for that. Danny, if you got to go soon, I don't know. I didn't really plan on how long I was going to do this for. If we want to go with some more questions, if you have time.
Whatever you're comfortable with, I'm comfortable with.
I think we can go through a few more questions and then probably maybe end it at like an hour and 30 or something like that. Just kind of loosely go. I just want to make sure I'm not holding you, and because you jumped on last second. For those of you guys that don't know, I decided to stream like right at the beginning of this, 20 minutes before. I just figured out Streamlabs, and I told everyone I would do this soon. So Danny just kind of hopped on. So this
the
fun.
Boss sent me a DM. Of course I'm going to come. The boss called. I went. That's it. Simple.
Yep. All right. So let's go through PHP and Laravel guy with React. Thinking about leaving Node.js. Let's just pull this up. I don't want to go into these too much because we kind of beat a dead horse here, but I just want to read this publicly. I'm starting PHP and Laravel with React.js. What do you think about this? I'm leaving Node because it's not enough for good large projects. I would disagree there. I think Node.js is going to cover, it's going to do that job. Maybe you haven't had a good experience with it, but from my understanding of it, it seems like it's pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, there are corporations that use Node, so like it obviously makes large projects. Like, but with that being said, PHP, Laravel, React, like it doesn't matter what the language is. It just matters that in your area there's a demand for it. Because if there's no demand for PHP and Laravel, you can be in the exact same situation, questioning what you learned. So just find out what's the demand in your area. Here's the easiest way to get demand. Whatever your job listing website is, whether it's Indeed, Monster, whatever is popular in your area, right? Just search it for a couple weeks. In the beginning, it's going to take a couple hours, like learning what jobs are there, right? Then you're going to see something happen. You're going to realize what jobs have been there for a while. You're going to see which ones come, which ones go, which ones are replaced quickly, asking for the same things, like Python, for example. If you see a lot of Python jobs come, go, and they're coming back fast, and you see all the Node jobs just kind of sitting there, that lets you know Node is not really in demand. That lets you know Python is where the money's at. Python is where all the companies are hiring for. And over a couple weeks, boom. Now you're going to know exactly what you need to know in your area.
Yeah. Okay, if you see any questions pop up, I'm just going to scroll through these for a little bit.
All right, we have a question here. What do you think about React Native?
You want to push that, or you want me to jump in there?
I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. I love the idea of it. I've coded up a couple apps. Like I built out an API and worked with it. The reason why I'm obsessed with it, so we can segue, I guess, into another topic. I worked with one of the developers that I hired. It was kind of hard to get him into doing things that are more cookie cutter. He loved to build out everything on his own. He was a PHP guy, Java, and it came time to build out a mobile app for our website. So we want to put in that version. And he wanted to hire an iOS guy and then do an Android version. And I went towards either Flutter or React or React Native. And the reason why was because I'm a big fan of, even though you like the code, I don't believe you should fall in love with your code. You should fall in love with the product, or not the product, but delivering the product as fast as possible, maybe making it clean, but getting the product out. If you have the time and it's a side project, maybe go into it. Or if you have, the app is going to go to large scale, you can custom build it. But React Native gives you Android and iOS capabilities. It's really similar to React. So I was already familiar with all that. To get the product to production, I was okay with React, like right away. That I chose to keep it simple. If we went the other route, it probably would have cost us like 4 times as much. So that's just one example to why I liked React Native. I don't really compare it to Flutter because I don't know much about Flutter. But if I'm comparing it to, like, do I build out my own custom mobile and let's say you go to Swift and then into Java, whatever apps are built in, I say keep it simple.
Yeah. So for me with React Native, I think it's a great solution. And if you know JavaScript, obviously the learning curve is smaller. Personally, I like Flutter a lot. I feel like the syntax is very easy to pick up quickly. I feel like, so Flutter is based off of Dart. It is owned by Google. And I feel like Google is like, hey, we have an app store and we want to make the learning curve as short as possible for people. How can we get more people submitting apps to our app store? And Flutter was the solution for that, because it is very simple. You can literally scale an application in such a short period of time compared to any other language. You have the Material UI library for all the design. So if you're a terrible designer, it's there to be your crutch and basically build out your front end for you. I like Flutter. I think it's a good solution. Plus, you can make apps on iOS, Android, and web with one code base. Now, I heard something similar with React Native. I haven't really explored that, but if they can do that too, that's awesome. But you can't really go wrong either way. What matters is, are there React Native jobs in your area? Because I know there are a lot of iOS developer jobs that are iOS specific. React Native is good in certain markets. Just make sure if you're learning it, it's in yours. Yeah,
it's good to have your perspective on that, actually, because I've never really touched Flutter. I'm just traumatized by Angular, so anything by Google now I don't trust.
Yeah.
So
Angular is tough. I've been working in Angular for like almost 2 years now, but it's definitely a learning curve. But I do feel like React is way easier to pick up as opposed to Angular.
Yeah, well, especially their transition from like Angular 2 to 3 or whatever, that transition.
Yeah, that was all messed up.
I remember I was so confused on what the heck happened there. I wasn't know at that point.
Yeah.
They dropped me. Yeah. Yeah, I think you give better insight than me. For me, it was production, but you give that the other side of that.
All right. And let's see. I've been learning C#. Oh, Rob Morgan. Rob, what's going on, buddy? I've been learning C# and love the language, but .NET Core has been so hard to find learning materials, especially with would it be better going to Java first? I think either one is fine. There are a lot of materials on C#. Microsoft has a ton of material that they've put out for free because obviously, they back C#. But also, like, you can check out our boy Bobby Davis Jr. at Coder Foundry. He's all about some C#.NET love, and I'm sure he can direct you to a ton of resources. But there are many resources. You just need to be looking in the right area.
Is Bobby? Did he just comment? Is that?
No, Rob Morgan was the person.
Oh, gotcha.
Bobby
Davis,
Davis,
you were just referring. Yeah.
He teaches at Coder Foundry C#.NET. And that's like one of his favorite things to push. So like we constantly not argue, but like we bicker because like he'll throw me like a C# meme and I'll throw him like a Java meme, and that's where we're going back and forth. Yeah, that's the comment.
Okay, just want to find that. Cool. Yeah, I wanted to pitch this question to Bobby Davis. Actually, we're gonna go on a live stream. I don't know if it's gonna be on my channel or his, but he gave that answer. That's why I included him in that, and he pretty much gave that same answer to what this whole stream was about: copying projects on your portfolio.
Yeah, we lost the damn meaning of the stream. We've gone down to different. Are we supposed to talk more about copying projects and portfolios, or I don't know what you want to do?
I think they always just go this way. Like I think as long as we kept it in that job market area, I think that's good because we answered the first question. If somebody wants to watch this later, I'll put it somewhere, but then we can just elaborate on this. Okay. Yeah,
job market, those kind of things are like the best to me, and that's what I'm always trying to help people achieve and get to. And of course, I feel like when you have a sense of purpose and that motivation and that drive and that desire to want to keep doing things, I want to help fester that love for that as much as possible as well.
Yeah. Somebody's asking if I didn't want to go into this too much right now, but is Flutter for the web? It's for mobile apps. You just build out an API. Yeah. You provide an API with Node.js, Laravel, or whatever, whether that's Django. Go ahead.
So, Flutter can make websites, and they have made websites. So you can use the exact same code base for your apps as your websites, and it'll convert it into JavaScript. So it converts all that Flutter code into JavaScript.
I need to get into that world a little bit more. Just never make the time.
I mean, it's a great way. Like, I think for the most part, I don't feel like the market is really too heavy into applications like they used to be. Whereas like, if you make a mobile app, you can make riches. I think the lifespan of a mobile app is several weeks. And I feel like most mobile app companies realize that. That's where they're always churning out like iterations of the same thing that with like a little difference to recapture new sales. But I feel like, honestly, like you can make a cool mobile application, and that's why I taught Flutter. I've taught it at several meetups, but the reason why I like Flutter is you can make a simple application, put it on your portfolio site with a download link, and a hiring manager now downloads it. Now they've got something in their hands that they can play with to see how good you are at what you do.
Yeah. Hey, that actually leads me to my next point. I think you've addressed this before, but talking about projects and how to display them, and I talked about going through and actually providing your GitHub repo or pictures of the projects or demos. I think it's so important to provide demos. And if you're sending me a GitHub repo, to provide me images of the product. Like I put out that post and I got a bunch of inquiries, just people sending me their projects or portfolios. And any GitHub repos, when I'm looking through hundreds, I don't have that much time, especially as a hiring manager to look through everything. But some people had GIFs that was really cool. Was it GIFs or GIFs?
It's whatever makes somebody mad is the one I'm saying. So GIFs, whatever.
So if you had that, like I don't have time to download your project and start looking through that. Like you have to put in the effort, not me. Don't make me look through your code. Now, if I'm more interested, I want to see something. Yeah, I'll look at your code if you caught my attention. But putting that in the README or on your portfolio website in the description about it, and don't make me sign up. Like I don't think I addressed this in the video, but a lot of people had a lot of like Instagram clones, Twitter clones, and I don't want to have to sign up when I'm looking through these projects for 20 different accounts. And now my email is on these accounts. I don't know how you're storing information. I have to create a fake email. Either give me a backend, give me a username. Like when we demoed our product at work, we had this like login as guest option, and we would just limit their post request or anything like that. But make it easy for that person looking through. Just I guess deviating back to the job market. Like don't make me look for things.
Yep, you've hit it on the nail on the head on this one. Where number one, I see that too often that people have portfolio sites items. You click on it and it's like, well, login. No. Yeah. You can't. It's good to know that you have login functionality, but I need to be able to not go through that whole signing up process, because the average hiring manager spends 6 to 10 seconds deciding if they're going to spend more time on someone's application, resume, website, or pass it on to the next one. It's not personal. They've got several hundred people applying for the same job.
Yep.
You want them to be like, oh, I don't know what the product looks like. I'm not going to spend 6 seconds that I could spend deciding if I wanted to have a good experience and a conversation with this person and move on to the next one. No. You got 6 to 10 seconds. You want all your information as easily accessible as possible. But here's the other thing why you have to. why you have to include a demo. Dennis, if I were to say to you, hey, I've got something 100% polyester, clean linen, this from this area of the world, like I'm telling you what the shirt is made out of. I would rather see the shirt and then inspect it.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what the shirt is made out of and don't give me a visual with it. Show me the product and then allow me to see the code if I want to see it. Show me the website and then allow me to see the code if I want to see it. Humans are visual eaters. Haven't you noticed that if a meal looks really nice, oftentimes you'll say it tastes better than what it may have tasted? We are visual eaters. Our appetite comes from our eyes. Haven't you ever looked at something like, man, that looks good? Visual appetite. Show me that website. Make me hungry for that code, and then I'll go look at it. Make me hungry to have a conversation with you. Don't give me the code with nothing to go with it. I don't want to have to envision what you envision, and then I don't even know if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah, I love that eating analogy. That's good. That's solid.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does copy mean idea stolen?
No, I'll put that up
Not
there. No, because if we talked about this in the first first 5 minutes, you're not presenting this project as your own. You're not taking somebody's Twitter clone and then making it your own and then publicly saying this is my project. This is for a portfolio. It's you're not stealing anything unless you're actually taking the credit for it. Now, if you lie about it, we'll probably figure that out. But I think in that sense, no.
And the other thing with that is like if you copied somebody's project and now you're making money off of it, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, that's completely different.
Yeah. What we're talking about here is you followed a learning tutorial and now you're showing off the project that you made from that tutorial. That's like literally going to college and be like, hey, I'm going to write a book report on this book. And then you're writing a report on that book. Like, no, this is my reference. This is what I'm making. And this is it's cool if you make your own spin, but no one is saying that you're recreating the book and then you're trying to resell it or get marks for it. You're just showcasing that you can follow instructions and that you're making something from that. But personally, I would say you need to get out of the realm of trying to show YouTube tutorials and make something on your own. Do your spin. Add something to it. Add your flavor. Like Dev Ed's flavor is different than yours. Dennis Ivy's flavor is different than yours. My flavor is different. Add your flavor. We want to know who you are. Show something that's true to you, and I guarantee you the whole world will come watching.
Yeah. Here we go. Should we copy and paste from Udemy? No. That's copy and pasting. You're not following the tutorial. I just thought that was funny just to follow that up. Absolutely.
Actually, that's one of my rules with my students even. You are allowed to look up code. And here's the other thing. Most of development, surprise, we're finding solutions on like Stack Overflow and stuff, and we're adding it to our code base. But my rule is you're not allowed to use Control-C, Control-V, Command-C, Command-V. You have to type it out. Because here's the thing. And it may seem weird, but when you're typing it out, your brain is focused on every single character that you're going. And now you're understanding on a deeper level, like what it's actually doing besides the broad idea. But if you're looking up what you're having to look up, trust me, you don't understand what you're doing, right? You're just copying something. I would rather you take 30 seconds to type it out than the 2 seconds it takes to copy and paste it. Because that 30 seconds is going to be so much a deeper level of learning than what you're expecting right now.
Yeah. My first rule when I would follow tutorials would be to go through the project, just get it done. Like I don't have to fully understand everything. Get the project done. Reverse engineer it, try to figure out what I do, write out just an ungodly amount of questions about every single step, then go through that rebuild again, watch it again, and then just repetition. And somebody asked earlier about memorizing. I didn't find the comment was way in the beginning, but memorizing code. Like you don't memorize this stuff. There are things like the English language or whatever language you speak. You don't have to remember what you're saying. This is all built into you now after years of practice. It's going to come naturally to you, but with code, there's still so many things that I look up because it's not something that I do every single day, or at least like one part of like something in Django, like authentication. I don't deal with that every day. So I still, when I'm applying it, go to the Django documentation, but don't worry about having to remember it. Worry about repetition, doing it a bunch, and then knowing how to search that problem up. You just get really quick at finding the solutions to that.
You know what's funny? I used to beat myself up memorizing every piece of syntax. Like I was beating myself up. And I remember like I spent countless nights just memorizing like foolish syntax that you would Google, right? My first week into my first job in tech, and I go to this developer over 20 years experience. Like he knows the code base like the back of his hand, like genius, right? Like he knows this code base. Anything wrong with the code base, he knows. And so I'm like, man, I can't figure out this problem. And I go to him. And he's like, oh man. He's looking at it, he's like, I don't know. Starts Googling it. My mind literally blew. Like I could have fell on the ground. Like I was so frozen. My thought process was professional developers know so much that they don't Google. Only the amateurs and the beginners Google. That situation was so eye-opening for me. I lost so much valuable time because I was like, no, I have to know the syntax. I want to be a professional dev. Yes, you need to know a good portion of syntax. Don't get me wrong. Like if you're in an interview, you can't be like, well, I don't know what a div is. Let me Google. No. You need to know these basic things. But it is completely in the realm of reality and reasonability for you to Google many of the things that you're going to do in your day-to-day. You need to know the broad strokes, but you can fill in all the details later.
Yeah, I love that example. Like I sometimes will show somebody projects and help debug something, and seeing when they see me look something up, it trips them out. Like, is this guy not? I know it's a good thing for me. I almost feel like I'm exposing that maybe I don't know that much, which I'm over that because I know what the industry is like. But it's kind of funny to see that, like, you get that aha moment because you're right. You need to know the basics of a div and how to write a simple function. But when I'm importing a module, I don't know if it's from Django.contrib.auth or is it from Django.contrib. Like, I don't have time to remember what file path a certain function comes from. I don't know if that's if it's camel case or not. That's just not something I'm going to spend time on.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Danny, unless I think we can end it right here. I don't want to make this too long.
Sure.
If you have any final points, I mean, guys, you got to check out Danny's channel. The handle is right here, D Thompson Dev, right? It's exactly like that. Danny has a bunch of content, a lot of motivational stuff, more focused on the job market, getting you jobs. If there's anything you want to pitch, or LinkedIn series, Twitter, I'll link all that up in the description after this, but you definitely have to check Danny out.
Yeah, definitely link with me. I'm on, obviously check out my YouTube channel, D Thompson Dev. I just released a video today. I'm always releasing more content, and I'll be honest, it's part of a learning process. So some of my early content kind of probably sucks a little bit, but it's getting better and better. But I have no problem failing in public. So I'm going to leave that sucky content up, and you can see how I've progressed and learned, because I genuinely believe being a developer is to be literally on a lifelong journey of learning. It never stops. Yeah. And I don't care if you've been a developer for 6 months or 10 years, you're still going to be learning something new. I'm always learning something. I love helping beginner developers, aspiring developers, junior developers, whatever you want to call yourself. I just call you developers. But if you want to be a developer without experience, I want to get you to be a developer with experience. And if you want to come on that journey, I see my boy Diarte in the chat. Thanks for hanging out. Amazing human being. He's very active in the community. But we have some. Right now, I'm actually doing a community project. If you want to be a part of it, go ahead. What we're doing is we're literally making a website for the community, by the community, and we're getting it's going to be several hundred people contributing to it. But the whole goal is to make a website with learning resources and cheat sheets and la-da-da-da-da. But it's great for everyone to want to learn and have an experience at building something together. But the ultimate goal is honestly just the community. So if there's a way that I can help you out, I want to try and facilitate that. And I've got more than enough material to try and help set you on your way to get noticed and get that job.
Awesome. Okay. Well, everyone check Danny out. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for enjoying my live stream. I hope that was helpful. This was a new accomplishment for me.
I think this was awesome. I think you were awesome. I think everyone enjoyed this, and I hope this is not your first and last. I hope this is the first of many, many more live streams.
Definitely not my last. All right. Well, I'll see you guys later. Take care.